Welcome to Basic Business AI, a podcast dedicated to simple AI strategies for businesses who don't want to get an advanced tech degree or hire some marketing bro. I'm your host, William Downs. We bring on regular business owners like you and me to discuss practical strategies, ideas, and perspectives about AI without getting too far into the weeds of the tech. Basic Business AI is sponsored by Conversational Funnels, the new way to automate lead generation, qualification, and appointment bookings for service-based businesses. If you want more sales calls on your calendar without having to pay some expensive marketing agency to hire appointment setters, Conversational Funnels are the best bang for your buck in 2024. Download the blueprint for free by going to conversationalfunnels.com. Today's guest is Angela Legh. She's best known as the author of her children's fantasy book series, the Bella Santini Chronicles, which gives children and their parents tools and techniques for emotional balance. Her current project is producing a show on Thriving Women's Network entitled Children's Lives Matter. Angela, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today, Will?
I'm good. I'm very good. Thank you for being on.
Thank you.
So we go straight into some AI talk. So
hmm
from your perspective, how is AI reshaping the future of your industry?
Oh my gosh. So I'm an author, and the amount of AI generated non human books on Amazon is like massive. and,
Mm-hmm.
and I can say, as someone who uses AI, not to write my stories because those are, you know, my proprietary thing, but um, I use AI for Children's Lives Matter. And what I do is I research different, like what are the biggest issues facing kids? And what do parents want to know about what kids are facing? And then I will write a script based on that research. And so AI for me, it's indispensable.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to, there's two threads on that so I think you've talked about before about Perplexity. Is that right? Was that
Uh-huh.
you that I saw something
I
about
use
that?
Perplexity AI. Yeah.
Yes, maybe you could talk a little bit about that and let's talk about some of the research and why that over like some of the other tools.
Yeah. So, I started out on ChatGPT with everyone else when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that became clear to me pretty soon was that the research that ChatGPT will spit out, sometimes it's made up.
Yeah, hallucinations. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Not real. Like, give me a link to that. No,
Sometimes it'll give you a link, and when you click it, there's just nothing there. That's
nothing
what really
there.
blows my mind.
And the beauty of Perplexity is every single thing that it puts out, there is a footnote to it with a link where you can
hmm
find it. So it's real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. I haven't used Perplexity in a while. I think ChatGPT now has some of those kind of features in the pro version where it'll put
Yeah.
like references and stuff, but I've never done like a side by side to see how that research does. But yeah, I know
Frankly,
exactly what you mean.
yeah, I use them both. And, Chat GPT has like the whole history of children's lives matter in there.
Oh yeah.
So, because it's a conversation
Uh-huh.
between the AI and me on how am I going to create this script, this episode to really serve the parents and the children.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I so I want to talk about that, but I also wanted to talk about before we switch to like the emotions and stuff like that that I think your
Okay.
book is about.
Important stuff.
Is the oh man, I love that stuff. Is the idea that like you mentioned that there's tons of books now that are just AI
Mm,
written. And I
yeah.
will say, just for fun, I found some website. It was like 5 minutes. You make a book and then they mail it to you. And it's literally a book. It's nonsense. It's absolute. I mean, I meant it to be nonsense. It was a gag thing. But
Yeah.
like the idea that like
Look,
that
I'm
quickly
published.
it generated all of that. It's
Yeah. And
crazy.
I think that it's a matter of being conscious in your use of AI. So for me, AI is like a 2-year-old child that I am training to have a conscious perspective on how to raise children by having those conversations. It'll spit out something and I'll respond and say, hey, no, you're totally missing this point, and let's revisit this thing.
In there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I keyed in on the like the emotions and stuff like that. And like you were talking about like with the book, can you talk a little bit more about that? It seems like
I
that's like there's
can.
like a serious passion there. I want to know a
Oh,
little bit
there's a
more
very
from your
big passion.
perspective on that stuff.
Thank you. So, um, when you were 8 to 14, you had big feelings and no one told you how to deal with them, right?
Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah, for sure.
And and parents basically they learn how to deal with their feelings from their parents. And so what's happened is there's this generational trauma passed down about repressing feelings, because I think if anyone listening thinks about how their parents dealt with painful feelings, it, like with my dad, it was reaching for alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
um, with my mom, it was falling asleep, but she had narcolepsy. So
Mm,
I can't really blame her for that
right.
one.
It still affected you though, yeah.
Yeah, but um exactly. So it was like my childhood was a primer for me to understand that escaping, suppressing, denying emotions actually is either leads to self-harming or harming others.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, okay, I've got these children's books that really, if you look at the Amazon reviews, they're all like 40 years or older from people of age 40 over.
Okay.
Um, but the information about how to face a feeling that's difficult so that you don't have to reach for alcohol or go shopping or do overeating or bulimia or any of those other repressive behaviors. um, it's just like it's so easy, and I want to give the audience that information because it's like the core of my message.
Uh,
So the idea of um, painful emotions, I call them difficult emotions, but
mhm.
negative emotions, there is no negative emotion. It's all just information, it's all energy. When you stop energy, it builds up. It doesn't just go away. So repressing emotions doesn't work. It just creates a backlog, a buildup of energy. And so when you're facing a difficult emotion, let's say someone said something to you and you're triggered, then you will kind of cycle in your mind. He said that. I hate that. I don't want to feel this way. And there's this thought loop that you get stuck in that keeps
Right.
the emotion flowing. So when you can disconnect your mind from the circumstances and do total focus on the emotion, then the emotion flows and it goes away. So the biochemistry of a feeling is timed at about 2 minutes.
Interesting. So what do you
But we've
mean?
all,
So 2 minutes like from when something happens to when that like becomes
yeah.
part of the
So
way
there's a
you're
trigger,
feeling?
and if the feeling is allowed to flow, it will flow within 2 minutes.
Oh, I see.
But when you think about sadness, grief, anger, all these painful feelings, because we haven't been given the tools to deal with them, our mind gets stuck on the circumstances and we're in that mind loop. I hate this. I don't want this. I hate this. And that keeps the feeling from flowing. So focused attention on the feeling is, you notice the feeling. Where is it in your body? How does it feel? Is it a big ball? Is it black? Is it purple? Is it in your neck? Is it in your stomach? Notice the feeling.
This starts to sound a lot like, have you heard of internal family systems?
I haven't, no.
Oh, yeah, you should look up internal family systems. The part of that is like identifying like where a feeling is, and it's
Oh,
sort of
it's
like
so
a
important.
considered like a part of you. And it's
Mhm.
like, and then they have like parts that are they're outcasts, so I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a part that you're like, that doesn't service me anymore. So I just like leave it over here and
Right. I'm in
I don't
denial of it.
access it. But then from what you're talking about and what like IFS is like, that part has a part of you in it that it's not able to give you because right now it's dangerous to you. And so it's like
Exactly.
figuring out how to make it not dangerous to you.
Yeah,
But
there's
yeah.
definitely a connection there.
Yeah, it's not
Uh,
just as simple as, yeah, all your parts are all fine. No, there's some problems to work out. But yeah, I like that. I don't know if you were saying this exactly, but the whole idea that sometimes a lot of those things like drinking, blah, 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 some of it is just a symptom of like this other thing, which is like digging into yourself and what's going on with
yeah,
you.
what triggered you? Why did you reach for that drink? Because the drink itself is the coping mechanism. It
Right.
is not the problem. I
Yeah.
mean, it can be the problem
Right.
because, like with
Yeah.
my father, it was a definite problem. But
Right.
um, the drinking is a coping mechanism. Coping with what? So when
Mhm.
you deal with the what, then you're free from that tyranny of,
Mhm.
you know, the what I call it is the tyranny of repressed emotion.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
to try to bring us a little bit back into AI,
Uh-huh.
I love this conversation by the way, but like to bring it back into AI, would you say like this could be like in your personal life or how you're like creating stuff for stuff that you're doing, what would be like a pattern that you would use for, hey, I want to um do something with AI right now and I need to or like research or write or however you want to, do that.
It's interesting because I have friends who like build prompts for AI,
Hmm.
and I don't feel like I prompt AI. I have a conversation with it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this next episode of Children's Lives Matter, we're going to focus on emotions and give me the latest, um, research on it,
Uh-huh.
on emotions. And so it'll spit a whole bunch of stuff out. And unfortunately, most of the science and the psychology of emotions will shift your perspective, but it doesn't move the energy. So
Uh,
you, to me, as like it all comes down to energy and movement.
uh-huh.
And so when you can actually shift the energy by allowing that emotion to flow, then there's no backup. There's no, oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be talking about AI.
No, you're fine. We're allowed to go on whatever. It's fine.
I got sidetracked.
No, you're fine. You continue.
Okay. So, but I am going to pull it back into AI. So I'll get this research and I'll say, that stuff I don't want to talk about. Here's this piece of this one. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. And then I will bring my conscious perspective in and I'll say, well, usually I talk about blah, 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 emotional repression. And this is how
Right.
and so I feel like I'm part of the group of conscious entrepreneurs who are training AI to understand consciousness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Well, and I like that, like, because I think you're right. A lot of people, they focus on, like, some people that are against AI say, well, it's wrong. And like if you don't
Right.
prompt right, it's wrong. Or if you prompt right, but the training has got some old information and it's wrong, or it doesn't know and then it does hallucinations. But when you do that conversation, you go, well, yeah, no, you're wrong on this. A lot of times, blindly, it will say you're right, which weirds me out when if I say something. Almost always, it'll just be like, you're right, and I'm like, man, you're just really passive, aren't you? But I'm like, it's a tool, so I guess it should listen to what I have to say. But
and
yeah,
and that's
sometimes I
what
want it to push back a little bit.
you're wrong. Um, I think that especially for entrepreneurs, that there's a whole discussion about whether AI is appropriate. And I think if you look at it as a tool and you don't put all your eggs in that basket, meaning that you don't take what AI shoots out and say, oh, I'm going to use this and I'm going to put it on my blog and I'm going to do
Right.
that with it.
Copy
And I'm,
paste.
yeah.
Done.
And
Right.
I'm like, I'm always calling AI on how it puts things together. So, you know, if you look at the articles I write in the Los Angeles Tribune or wherever, they will not start in a world where, because
Uh-huh.
AI will always spit out in a world where blah, 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 blah.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
AI will always spit out in conclusion. And
Oh, that
anytime
is
I see
interesting.
an article that says in conclusion, I say that's AI written,
Uh-huh.
because people do not end articles by saying in conclusion when they're writing.
Right. Uh-huh. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that's so true.
So it's being like just a little bit conscious about what you're copying out of AI
hmm
and adding your humanness to it.
Yeah. No, I've told this story a couple of times with my sister is a college professor and like right when
Oh
oh
man, there
wow, it's a
was a
tongue twister
lot of
today.
talk
When
about
it was
there.
coming out,
Yeah.
somebody had in their paper, it was like an English or writing or something like that. In the paper, it said as an AI language model, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, that's the
Hello.
dumbest cheat anyone has ever done. Like, did you bother reading what you had it
What
write
you
you?
copied, right?
Yeah, you literally didn't even change that part. And so she sent an email out to all her students saying, it's come to my attention. Some people are using ChatGPT. You have an opportunity to turn yourself in and you get a chance to redo it or something like that, or you're in trouble. It was like 50%, 30 or 50. It was a huge percent. I don't remember what it was. It was a huge percentage of people came back and they're like, sorry. And she was like, what? She didn't know that many because some of them were smart enough not to do that. But
Well, and
she
I think that the smart teachers in college realize that AI is here to stay.
that's what she's doing now.
And
Yeah.
now you
She's
have to,
incorporating it.
yes, use AI, but you have to have your critical thinking in it, because
Mhm.
otherwise you're not learning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tool for today, like a calculator. It's like you shouldn't be using a calculator if you're learning your multiplication tables, but a
Right.
calculator is not a problem later. And I think that's what she talks with her students about, like, hey, when you're learning this, don't be using it. When you're doing like this formatting, AP formatting or something like that, I don't care. Use a tool to format your paper right. I just need it to be formatted correctly. That's your job, is to find the tools and to make sure the tool does it correctly if you're going to use a tool. So,
Yeah. And when I use AI, I write for 9 different newspapers across the country and in London. And so I might go in and say, what are London parents really concerned with today?
mhm.
And so it'll spit a list out of, and I'll pick one thing and I'll say, okay, so tell me about in England what's going on about this. and then I have a basis to start writing an article. So it doesn't write my articles for
Mm-hmm.
me, but it provides me with great tools to write the
Yeah.
article.
Yeah. I love that. Well, hey, so tell it, I mean, I don't like normally I ask like what's your target audience and how people can get in touch with you. But if you want to also talk about your book and your and the series that you're working on, if I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Children's Lives Matter. I'm really targeting millennial parents to give them the tools to raise emotionally healthy kids. So on Thriving Women Network, you can find it on e360tv.com, and you scroll down till you see the silver Thriving Women Network boxes. Um, Children's Lives Matter is ending its second season. And we have done shows on body image. We have done shows on social media. We've done a whole month on suicide prevention. We did a whole month in October on bullying prevention. And in that, we talked about the marginalized kid and how 94% of school shooters are marginalized kids. So, why don't we start working on inclusion in schools so that we don't have to worry about gun control because all the kids are happy?
Yeah, man, I love that. Yeah, anybody coming up with a solution for that, that is definitely on everybody's mind right now.
Yeah, well, I've written a couple of articles about it too.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like
that's
we
great.
need to do upstream investment. We need to invest in everybody feeling like they matter so that they're not going to pick up a gun and do that.
Man, that touches me because that's such an important message to just hear somebody say you matter is like important.
And
And
that's
and
pretty much what my books are about.
that's
It's
great.
like
That's
you
awesome.
matter, you are magical, and um, the world needs you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's it. We're done. So
Okay.
we're gonna wrap from here. Thank you, Angela, for joining us for a practical conversation about AI and its potential for business and all the side trails we went on. Like I said, I loved everything we were talking about. It's fun, and we're allowed to do side trails.
Oh,
You can
good.
learn more about Angela by going to angelalegh.com, but Lee is spelled Legh. Did I get that
Correct.
right?
Hmm.
And then all of your socials will also be on there, and then also they'll be in our show notes.
Yeah, and the TV show is accessible through there, and my books are accessible through there.
Perfect. Well, thank you very, very much to our audience. If you want to be on an episode of this of Basic Business AI, you can go to basicbusinessai.com and sign up to be a guest. Um, and Oh, I have one more thing. I have my sponsor. I got to do that. One more time. If you want to solve the problem of lead generation, qualification, and follow-up by automating it completely, download the Conversational Funnels Blueprint for free at conversationalfunnels.com. See you next time on Basic Business AI.